ceremonies. In absentia, the two vice presidents of the Republic, Dr. Chiwenga and Colonel Mohammed. The Minister of Defense and Chairman of the RPF, Honorable Sizet Nchinguri Kashiri. Minister of State for Harare Metropolitan Province, Honorable Charles Tarengo. The Minister of Local Government and Public Works, Honorable Daniel Garwe. Other ministers and deputy ministers who are here. The Chief Secretary to the President Cabinet, Dr. Martin Bushwaya. Senior government officials who are here. President of the National Chiefs Council, Senior Chief Chana Kumaro, and other chiefs who may be here. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairperson of the Zimbabwe National Elders Forum, Reverend Dr. Mkono Wengwe, and esteemed members of this forum. Representatives of the women and the youth who are here, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. I think I'm happy to be invited by the Zimbabwe National Elders Forum. This is a grouping of eminent citizens of this great nation. For me to address you on an important subject that speaks to the colonial injustices suffered by our people from the year 1890 to 1980. I'm humbled by the Elders Forum collective will towards the restoration of our dignity in the aftermath of the decades-long subjugation of the indigenous native of this country by the racist colonial regime we kicked out. I'm further pleased that the forum has immersed itself in researching this important topic for a few years, focusing on the land issue. In doing so, they have accumulated information and evidence on the impact of colonialism on our society. In keeping with this good work, I have had the privilege of receiving a paper from the forum titled, and I quote, "The Untold Story of Injustices, Trauma and Losses Experienced by Indigenous Zimbabweans During the Colonial Era, 1890 to 1980, a case for reparations." I thank you. As many of us would recall, the racist colonial regime started grabbing land around 1893, a process that was further consolidated by pieces of unjust legislation, such as the Land Apportionment Act of 1931 and the Native Land Husbandry Act of 1950, amongst others. But native land. It is therefore pleasing that the forum intends to go further and comprehensively document the untold story of the injustices, the trauma and the loss of lives and livelihoods experienced by our indigenous black people due to colonial land appropriation and the forced movements. The proposed study, as I am reliably informed, will put forward recommendations that will explore options to assist in the long-term healing of affected communities, as well as for rekindling and recreating goodwill. Goodwill, no. Okay, goodwill between the Zimbabwean society at large and the former colonial power. We have observed and indeed quite recently as the former colonial powers, the United Kingdom, apologizing to the Mau Mau of Kenya, and Germany also apologizing to the Mbandero, Herero, and Nama people of Namibia. We therefore, we asked, when are the rest of us in the former colonies going to receive similar apologies from these people, the colonizers, the British? We wonder. We need it. They must apologize. It is no secret that colonial violence was brutal and systematic. And those of us old enough to tell the tale still bear scars and associated trauma from the violence. Those of my age, most of my colleagues in my category of age, went through very difficult and cruel imprisonment, 10, 15 years in prison here, by these criminals, by these British oppressors. We still bear the scars and the associated trauma from that type of violence. Even in the quest for freedom and self-determination in both the first and second Chimurenga, our efforts were considered criminal and treated as such when we sought freedom. And yet they said they were Christians. Amen. But Christian, resultantly, many were executed. I remember 1964-65 when we were incarcerated here at Raleigh prison. They will execute our colleagues and ask us to dig the graves and bury them. Yeah, it's all in the prison. 1965. We remember this more than a century later because the residual effects of decades-long pain and bitterness are still real up to date. There is a difference, of course, between hearing the events and living through the events. Indeed, we can no longer remain silent while our people carry the scars of a painful and cruel past. The time has come for us to engage our erstwhile former colonial power objectively and astutely, seeking the much delayed yet important post-colonial gesture of reparations, restorations, and much needed apology and reconciliation. Apology and reconciliation in capital letters. Equally, the subject of reparations is not new, but the calls for restitution continue to grow louder and louder. While my administration has been forthright in accommodating compensation for former white farmers in respect of improvements on the farms redistributed by the state, we cannot afford to ignore the cries of our people for justice. Hence the reason why my government has placed substantial value and significance to the journey that the Elders Forum has embarked on through this proposed study. You have my full support. In retrospect, it is the colonial power that should have compensated Zimbabwe first, and Zimbabwe then used in part of the compensation for the reparations to compensate the former white farmers for improvements. It is therefore important for our key knowledge industries and institutions to support this study by our Elders Forum, so that we harvest as many enriching insights into the human experiences of colonialism and its aftermath. Indeed, a whole of society approach will only serve to give us the best results possible, with the significance of this work reverberating for generations to come. I would therefore like to assure my government's support in this endeavor, and further call upon the Zimbabwean society here at home and beyond our borders to also extend a supporting hand to the Zimbabwe National Elders Forum. Let me assure the Zimbabwe Elders Forum that they have my full support if they need the resources. As I conclude, I wish to remind us that this is one of the most important investments we have to make, and we owe it to our forefathers, our children, and the future generations that we stood up as a nation. With these remarks, it is now my honor and privilege to officially launch this reparations initiative and journey, which we must complete.
These are touching moments.